Hello everyone, it's Marie again from Skeletorama. Welcome back to my channel. Ephemera Shop. How's everybody doing? Doing alright, I hope. I'm doing okay. So we are here now to work on sewing the actual signatures into our book. So I went ahead and finished, obviously, off camera, the other sewing and all of that. I won't go through all of it, but I do want to show y'all, where'd it go? The one where I had taken the music pages and I had put them, kind of folded them in and sewed them. Where are they? They're here somewhere, I swear. Ah, there they are. Because they came out really cool. So I'll bring this up so you can see, hopefully a little bit there. So what I did was, when you fold this over like this, it's kind of hard to see the edge of it. So I want to make sure the edge was nice and clear visually so that when you go to put something in, you don't miss or what have you. So I used some of the mulberry paper and then a little, torn piece of the paper from the kit from a misprint that I had done of it. And then I used my fancy stitch. And this is some gold, really thin gold washi tape that I completely didn't trust, which is why I decided to put the decorative stitch on there. So got all this stuff done, ready to go. So these are ready to sew in. So that is what we are going to do today, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing we need, obviously we've got our cover here. So we're going to sew our signatures into something and then we're going to attach that something to the cover. So what is that something? Well, it's book cloth. So I had a bit of an issue when I ordered it from Amazon, because usually I go to, I think it's Dick Blick's Art Materials and get it, but with the pandemic and all that junk, I didn't want to go down there and deal with that, and their shipping was crazy. So I went ahead and ordered it off Amazon where it cost more, but 6 of 1. Ordered the wrong thing, right? So here I am looking at the book cloth, and of course me in my infinite wisdom decides, oh well, this stuff is just a little bit cheaper and it looks like the same, right? And so this is Linico super book cloth for signatures, etc., right? Well, not so much. What you couldn't see in the picture is this. See how see-through that is? This may technically work for that, but I wouldn't be comfortable using it for my base, for my signatures for that. It is handy, however, and I will be able to use it because one of the things that I like to collect are antique books. And I had gotten this book here. This book is 1905, so 115-year-old book. Had survived beautifully with its cover, with its spine, until the United States Post Office decided to, I don't know what they did to that box, but when I got it, it was in a different box with the original label cut out and taped to it with a bunch of USPS tape all over it. Opened it up. One of the books that I gotten was Kelly's Peerage. It's a, what am I looking for, that word? Genealogy, thank you, reference book. And it was from 1935, supposed to be about 2,000 pages. My text block, because that's all I got, there was no covers, there was no spine, the text block started at page 1300. At the bottom of this were a bunch of the more brittle pages from some of the books in little pieces, and this, which really hurt my soul a little bit. So, like I said, when I purchased this, it had the spine attached to it, and the covers were attached to the text block. They no longer are. And the text block has been split in two. So this is what you would use to fix that. So you kind of scrape the crap off of there and you put this on here. So I have to get some bookbinding adhesive, but I definitely want to fix this because it's just such a beautiful book. And this is the history of Scottish families and things. So my family's in here. Actually, I just passed them. There they are. Stuart. So yeah, this poor thing has to get fixed. It's gorgeous. So that's what you would use that one for. So when I realized my mistake when it came in, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to have to get the more expensive one after all because it's the right one. And it was. And I went to Blick's Art Materials to double check the brand name, and it was. So it's this. And so this is right here somewhere. There we go. Book cloth, and it's done by Books at Hand. It's going to run you about $15 or $16 on Amazon. If you get it in an actual art supply store, you can probably get it for closer to $9 or $10. But what it is it's cloth that has paper attached to the back, sort of, right? So it's very, very sturdy, very stiff. And so this is what we're going to use. We're going to sew our signatures onto this, and then this will get glued down to the actual book itself. Okay, so book cloth is one of the things you need. And then of course we'll do an end paper, so I'm kind of between this, and once we get them in there and look at it, I'll decide. But this one, these are all Bo Bunny double dot vintage, which is, I love these papers and they're nice and thick. Or this one. So we'll kind of hold them next to it and decide when we get to that point. Okay, so you'll need those. You will need a piece of copy paper because we need to make a little template of where we want to put the holes at. You'll need an awl. So what I did was I got one of those book binding kits on Amazon. How many times can I buy things from Amazon? I don't know, a lot. But because my awl, aka Pokey Tool, look at this poor thing. This thing is like trashed, right? Because it's not really meant for book binding, but that's what I used it for. So I had to replace it. So it came with a book binding awl. So if, as you notice, it's a little bit larger here. And then the waxed linen thread. You can use waxed linen thread. You can use waxed cotton thread. There's this stuff that I found like in the, I think it's a knitting department or something, or embroidery department of the craft store. That's a nice thick thread. That one works too, but I do like the waxed. And then a needle of some sort. So this little kit came with an assortment of needles. So you want kind of like a tapestry needle type thing. You want it to be nice and big, but not too big. About like that. So that one is roughly a little over 2 inches long. And it's fairly thick. And as you notice, it's about the same thickness. These two things here. If you have it too thick, what'll happen is the holes that you make are going to be too large and it's going to look terrible and whatnot, or you take a chance of ripping the paper. So we will need those. And of course, scissors and a ruler and then adhesive, etc., etc. Okay. So what we are going to do is I am going to move this stuff here, kind of straighten these things up and get everything ready, and I will be back with you in just a second, and we will start making our piece to put the signatures in with. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do in this one, and I almost forgot, was I want to put one of the envelopes in the center of the signatures when we sew it in. So this is the envelope from the kit. There's one in the kit, but the nice thing is if you want to print multiples, obviously you can. So we're just going to score this here. So I have my handy dandy scoreboard, and you just kind of line it up with the line, just to make it easier to fold. We're not going to glue it together or anything, but we do want to make sure we've got it ready to go. So line that up a little bit better than I'm doing, hopefully. I'm not the best at this when it's these, because it's kind of hard to see, It's like, I think that's straight. I'm fairly sure. Looks straight. Find out. It was more or less straight, not really. I'd skipped over. And that will happen sometimes, so I was going like between two different lines. There we go. Okay, so we got that. And then we'll just scoot this down here. And I already went over the edges with my vintage photo distress ink, so that way it kind of hides that white core of the paper. And then we're just going to fold these flaps in, and we're going to get this ready to go this way, but since we're going to sew it in, we're going to wait to actually glue everything together until after it's already in. So there we go. So we have our envelope here. Okay, we'll end up gluing it here and here, but we're going to sew it in right here. So it's actually going to be attached to the center signature. So there's that part right there. And there's a couple other cool things that we're going to do with stuff as well, but I'll be right back with everything for that. All right, so with this cover, there's a couple things that I wanted to do that you kind of have to do before you sew your signatures in so that they're nice and sturdy. The first one is I have this ribbon here. So this is a jacquard ribbon, and it's super pretty. It's got a Celtic knotwork thing on it. What I wanted to do was I wanted to have it on the spine here, so that when you look at the spine like this, it's on there. But in order to have it be nice and secure, I really need to attach it before I put the signatures in, so we can fold it over like this eventually. Fold it over this way here, and we can glue it in, and then the signatures and everything will sit on top, so it'll keep it in there nice and secure. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to cut a length of this off. And where's my tape? There it is. I like to put tape on the end of this because it tends to fray, so that's why there's tape on the end over here. All right, and we will put this off to the side. And speaking of ribbon, I also wanted to do some bookmarks. So again, you're going to want to put this stuff in before you put your signatures in, so it can be secured under here really well, and it'll come hang over this way and you can tuck it into your book. So I've got a couple things of ribbon here. I realized the other day that it's almost February and St. Patrick's Day is only a month and a half or so away. So all the St. Patrick's Day stuff is at the craft stores, and I went out to Joann's and had a field day with it, because even though, you know, obviously again there's more to Ireland than St. Patrick's Day, but darn it, it's a really good time to get Irish themed things. So I got some different ribbons and a bunch of fabrics that you'll see later, but I think we'll use these two as the bookmarks for it. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure your ribbon. Go ahead and make it nice and long because we can trim it up at the end. So we'll measure it. We'll give it about 1.5 inches or so on either end here. Cut that off. And then we will glue these in as well. So what we are going to do is we are going to attach this one here first on the outside, and then we are going to attach these two kind of on either side of it, just so we don't end up with a ton of bulk right here in the center. These over to the side. Go ahead and take my little piece of tape off here, and you'll see once I take it off just how prone this stuff is to fray. Look at that. Look at it go. Cut that off. All right, so we're going to flip this over here, and we're going to put the Fabrifix on there because it's good bonding fabric to fabric. It's a really strong bond. You can, if you need to, use double-sided tape. I just really prefer to use the Fabrifix on it. So what we want to do is open that, and we're going to go ahead and clean the top of that off because I don't care what happens, it's always a mess, always. So there we go. Got that. And let's put this up like this, just so it's easier for us to see where it actually folds for when we place this on here. I should probably move this stuff so y'all can actually see what I'm trying to show you how to do, right? Okay, so we will start with the center because we can go in and obviously, you know, glue the ends down. We're going to. And so I just put a bead of it in the center and then along the edges here, because that's the part we really want to make sure sticks down real good. All right, so bring this back over and hold it about as centered as we can. The ends don't really matter, but there we are. Okay. I just want to make sure I got it so when I did fold it up, it was still centered more or less. So now you just kind of pull this back and see where it missed, and this we can put directly on the book itself. It's a little easier, and then we'll hit the edges of this so those get nice and glued. Again, bring this up with the Fabrifix, Fabri-Tac, any of those. You do kind of have a second, so if you've gone all crooked, you can straighten it up. So how's this one here? Just needs a little bit. Put a little bit on there. If you hear a strange noise, that would be my cat snoring in the chair next to me, which is just the cutest thing ever. Okay, so now we're going to flip this over here, and we'll put it down to about, let's say about here. So there's a nice long amount in there for it to get kind of trapped under there. And so cut you right there. Oops. Yeah, and here we go again with me not cutting things straight. It's always a joy. And again with our Fabrifix. With this, I do a little bead right there on the edge just to make sure it's going to come over that edge nice and tight. See, these threads are already trying to rebel. All right, kind of smooth that down, and you'll probably get a little bit on the inside when you smush it down. That's fine. Try to keep it off the fabric, but if you get it on the inside over here, it doesn't matter. And we're going to flip it around and do the same thing here. Cut it about there. And that we're going to keep. We could probably use that for something. And this time we'll do it on the book because the ends just love to try to fray on the jacquard ribbon just because of the way it's put together. All right, flip this over and press it down nice and flat. And make sure you're pulling it nice and tight so that it's not lumpy on your sides. See here, it's nice and tight against there. Okay, so when we have our spine of our book, it's going to be like this. So with this one, since I do the 3 signatures, I'm not going to put a hole with a grommet in there to put the tassel, because we will be doing a tassel. I'm going to do it like I did the other one, where I have it on one of the little Tim Holtz type clips, just because you can take it on and off, and it makes it much easier when you're going to use it. If you want it to lay down flat, you know, it's easier to just remove the tassel versus trying to move it around while you're working on it. Okay, so with this fabric, it's not very directional. I think I kind of like it with this being the way up. So that's what we'll consider the top. And now we're going to put these on there. So now when we put these on there, we want these to come around like this. So you're going to glue them on kind of backwards, right? So we'll put one there and we'll put one here. Same thing, we're going to go in here, you know, fairly decent amount. And we'll do it on either side of them just to kind of reduce bulk. So it doesn't really matter. You're going to pull it to wherever you want it in your book anyway. So got the glue on there, and see this? See where it's kind of bubbling up like that? That means I need to put some acetone in my glue because it's acetone based glue, and when it starts getting low in the bottle, mine's down to about here. When it starts getting low in there, the fumes will kind of push it up and out, and it does this volcano thing. It's just massively annoying. All right, so we'll do this one as well. And then we'll finish the ends of these to make sure that they're not going to fray and all that good stuff as well. But we'll do that at the end. Not worried about that right this minute. All right, and so same with this. Put this in here. Press this down real good. And voila, we're going to have 2 bookmarks, and they'll come over like so. And we can put beads or something on them if we want, what have you. All right, so there is that part. So now we need to cut our book cloth. So we're going to see if I can cut this straight, but I'm going to be smart and I'm going to actually use my pencil. All right, so here is your back with your spine here. So you're going to want this to extend at least 1 inch on either side. Okay, so what I do is I'll take it here and I'll line it up. And I take my pencil and I kind of mark it here. And then on here, you want this to cover the back, but you want to give yourself probably about 1/8 of an inch on either end to give like a little bit of a reveal, because when you put your end pieces of paper on, they're not going to go directly up to the edge because that would be a bit of a mess. And so you're going to want those cut the same as this so that everything lines up. Right, so we have that this way. So we will take our long scissors, because the longer the scissors, the less chance I have to go squirrely with them. And I'm going to cut this part first. And you can get a lot of books out of one roll. You can get probably 6 or 7 at least, depending on how big they are. And we'll come down this way. Now this doesn't have to be absolutely perfectly straight, and I'm cutting a little off camera just because, you know, I'm afraid I'm going to cut into the book like an idiot. So, because you can never tell what I'm going to do. And I promise you this will not be straight because I've cut it by hand. So you'll get to see. All right, so this is going to go here. Okay, so it'll go in here just like this. So we're going to sew our signatures to this, and then this will be glued in, and then our end papers will be over that. Okay, so we'll get this kind of curled around this way here, and then let me tidy up for 1 second. I shall be right back. I took the liberty of also putting a little bit of acetone in my Fabrifix So what it is this has an acetone base here, so you can thin it with nail polish remover, but it has to be 100% acetone. If it's the kind of stuff that's gentle on you or what have you, it has lots of different additives in there, and it's going to mess you up. But this should help with the volcano action, and it'll help it flow a lot better. So you just put, I think maybe I did just under a half a cap, maybe more like somewhere between a third and a half of a capful in there. That's all you need. And you just kind of swirl it around. You don't want to shake it, you know, just kind of turn it, let it turn in on itself, and make sure it's all coming from the bottom. It gets mixed in there nice and well, and then you just let it sit for a bit, which it's going to have to do anyways while we're doing what we're doing. So now what we're going to do is we are going to make a template, and we are also going to straighten this up because this is just bugging me bad. Can't handle that. I think I'd be used to it, but I'm not. Okay, so we're going to make a template. So we have our paper here. This is 8.5 by 11, which is what we use for our signatures as well. And obviously we don't need this much, so we're just going to kind of cut this down here. What we want to do is we want to decide where we're going to put the holes for it, and then we'll use this to poke the holes, kind of as a guide. And we're also going to put it on the back of here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our paper and we're going to fold it in half. So that way you're kind of on the little center fold here. Okay, and we're going to grab one of our signatures. First thing we want to do is we want this to be the same height as our signatures, which it is. So we're good there. And so with these, we know that this is representative of the signatures themselves. So we're going to take our handy dandy ruler out. And I usually go in on these about 1/2 inch from each side. Okay, so we'll just mark it there. Same on this side. We're going, there we are, there we go. 1/2 inch here. And then this is 8.5, so what, about 4.5. The Tim Holtz ruler is also a centering ruler, which is great because you can just take this here and, you know, 4 1/4, 4 1/4. And you go to your 0 point, and that's going to be the center. Okay, so that's where we're going to mark those. So we will take this, I usually then open it out, and I make bigger dots, because these dots are going to get big anyway, because you're going to be poking through it. So this is what we're going to use for the actual signatures. We're also going to use it to line the holes up on here. So same thing with this, just kind of find your center point. This is, I never have this thing the right way around. This is about 4.5 inches wide. So center on this, same thing, 2 1/4, 2 1/4. That's about my center line there. And then I line it up with the part that I didn't cut, to make sure that it's straight. I'm going to draw a line here. Boom. Okay, so I got a line down the center. Now with these, I usually give myself about 3/4 inch between the signatures. Okay, so we've got this lined up here. So we've got 1, 2, 3/4 inch here, and 3/4 inch here. Come down, do the same kind of thing. So we're going to line them up. But we need to have our holes on both for when we go to sew them in. Okay, so then we're going to take this, and also I can line this up here where it's 1, 2, 3/4 inch. But I like to have redundancy because I have issues when I measure things. I don't know, it's like my brain shuts off or something. All right, so there's my 3/4 inch there. And a 1, 2, 3. See, I almost did 1 inch. Just can't be trusted with these things. Okay, so that's that there. And we're going to come down 1/2 inch from the top here. Actually, no, we'll do the center one first because it's going to be a little bit longer. Okay, turn this around so I can read it. So on the center, it's about 4 3/8 is going to be my center line. So there's my center line there. And again, with this rule, it's nice because it's see-through, so I can line this line up with these center lines so that I know it's straight. And I can put it up against here, and boom, there we go. Okay, so now between this and this is 3 3/4 inch. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to line it up on this, center line here, we're going to go 3 3/4 of an inch. Because if you mark down a 1/2 inch from this, this isn't necessarily the same size as this. As a matter of fact, I can tell you it's not. See, this part's going to be a little bit larger, so it's not going to give you the correct measurement. So we want this to match what we're going to do for the holes for our signatures. So again, we're going to line that up and go this way. I mean, and since you go in with the signature, you're still going to be in the right place, but this is a good guideline to use. Okay, 3 3/4 of an inch here. And same thing. Line that center up there so that we're relatively straight. And here. And this part you're not going to see. This part's going to be glued to the inside of the book, so it doesn't really matter. So now we know if we do our little center points here, this is where our signatures are going to get sewn in. I do the 3-hole pamphlet stitch just because it's the easier one. You can do a 5-hole, you can do any kind of, there's hundreds and hundreds of different ways to bind a book. This is just the easiest for me, and it's nice and sturdy, so that's the way I use. So let's bring our cover back in for just a second. Get our bookmarks up out of the way. We're just going to hold this in here and make sure this looks like, I'll kind of hold these up here. Yes, that's going to work just fine, because it'll give you about a 1/2 inch clearance on either side of the first and the last signature as well, while still keeping enough room between them that you can put lots of stuff in there. Okay, so now we have this. We'll set this off to the side. Now we're going to do our signatures themselves. So I have my 3 signatures here, and I have everything in the order that I want it. And so I've got the first and the second and the third. And I've kind of made that decision because I want to put the envelope in the center one. So I made the center one the one that has the design that it will be impacted the least. Oh, but see, I was afraid of that. So one thing I didn't look was to see the color wise. You know, it might be better with this one. Let's see where you are here. Yeah, might be nicer with this one just because it kind of stands out, a little bit more contrast. The other one is the flag, and I'm not putting anything in the center of the flag, so we'll put it in this one here. So we're going to toss that in there, and we can let those kind of come out how we want. All right, so that one there, we'll put this one in the front. So we're going to do each signature one by one. I usually prefer to start with the last signature first. It's just personal preference. You can start in the center and do either side, however you want to do it. And then this is the thing we're going to use to figure out where to poke our holes. So I have these binder clips here. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my signature and I'm going to make sure everything's lined up the way I want it first. So usually I'll take page 1 and I've got everybody else sitting here, and then I kind of put them in here and I line them up and make sure that my clearance is even here and here. And with this is going to be larger than it, so we need to make sure it is centered. You just kind of go through all the pages and do that. And with this here, we'll decide once we put this page in where we want it. So have this page here, so it looks good right here because it kind of mirrors the way this is going. So we'll leave that right in the center. You just kind of continue on with all the pages, making sure everything's lined up. Like this is a smaller one, so you can have it in the center, you can have it towards the bottom, towards the top, however you like. I think I'm going to go at the bottom with this, because that way when we have it open, if we want to put something across here once we fix these pages, we can, and it'll kind of peek through. And I try to kind of change it up a bit between all the different pages. So whereas that one's towards the bottom, you know, the next one's going to be centered. This right here will probably be at the bottom, or you can have it at the top. Let's do this one at the top since the other one is centered. And then I'll put this next to this and make sure it looks fine, which it does. And we got the music page, just a little more narrow, so it's going to go in there. And this is a good chance to make sure all your pages are right side up. Everything's the way you want it. You didn't forget anybody. This, I'm going to put this down towards the bottom for that same reason, so we can have stuff kind of poking over this way. And then I have this here. And this one I'm going to put in the center. And then I have my center page here. Okay, So now that we have these, the next element we're going to add is our little template here. Okay, and so I line this up so that this is nice and even within this as well. And then I kind of push my finger into the spine and I do a clip on this side up here. And then I go to the opposite corner and do the same thing. Make sure everything's pressed real good into the spine. It's nice and tight. And make sure you put this on here, catching that one. And then you go over to this corner. So with this one, same thing. I'm kind of holding that in there, making sure it's pulled nice and tight. And I put this one on there. Now I'm going to flip this one down. And then go to this side and do the same on this, because the other two we're going to adjust, most likely. Okay, so we got this here, flip it down, and then this, okay, see how my pages are bowed out? I don't want that. So I'm going to let go of that, and I'm going to do it again with this. But since those are nice and fixed in a position that we want them, this one becomes a lot easier. So, same thing, release that tension that's snuck in there with this, and we have this here. Okay, so we have our signature, we're ready to go. It's still going to have a little bit of kind of bowing. You really can't avoid that just because of the way you're clipping it. It'll release once you undo your clips, obviously, once it's sewn in. All right, so now we have to transfer our holes from our paper into our signature. And the key is you use this to transfer the holes, but please remember to remove this before you actually sew it. I've almost sewed that in a couple times. All right, so I have my awl here. There's a ton of different ways you can do this. You can use a book cradle, which is a wooden piece that'll hold it kind of in this V shape to make sure you're, lining everything up straight. You want to get this as straight as you can. Your goal is to go in through here and have it come out on this fold. You don't want it coming out on the front or the back or anything, because then it'll be crooked. I know some people will take a book, like an old book, and sit it on there so they've got something to press into. What I do is I take it and I lay it here like this. I put my awl here, and then I kind of close it, and then I push straight up and out, because it's naturally going to have your pages where you want. So same thing with this one. Close it. See? Comes up and out. And I will do that on this one, and I'll try to line up the camera shot thing here first. Okay, there we go. See? So I've got it closed, and I'm pushing, because you're going to naturally go through these like this. You want it nice and straight. Okay? So we take our awl out, and we kind of I just release it enough to get it to let go of the paper, because I want it to continue holding these things nice and tight, because if it doesn't, it's going to be harder, and then you can usually just kind of pull it out of these ones here. Okay, and set that to the side, because we're going to use that again. All right, so these are here. So now what we need to do is we need to get our needle threaded. So we've got our wax linen thread, whichever kind of thread you're using. I usually do it 3 times the length. You can do 2.5 or 3. I would rather cut some extra off than be short. So, and this stuff's really not very expensive, so it's not going to hurt anything. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 times a lady. Okay, cut that off. And we will get our needle here, which of course I put back so I wouldn't end up stepping on it. So there's some big old wampa needles in here. You don't need those ones. It's this one that I want. And see if you can get them back. Seriously? Wow. Oh, my coordination is at an all-time high today. All right. Got those in there. And you're going to take your needle and you're going to thread it through here. Okay, and leave yourself a nice big tail. Okay, you don't want to knot it or anything like that. So we have our needle here. We've made sure to take our piece of paper out. That's very important. And now we're going to sew this to this. Now, depending on how much coffee I've had that day and how my day is going, I will have a tendency to start sewing it to this side, because of course I've got all the helpful dots on here, right? We're sewing it to this side, right? And it's going to be the back one, so we're going to aim for this stuff here. So I've got this. Now this is where it gets fiddly. And you can do it as many times as you need to do it. The book cloth will hold up to messing it up a few times. So you have a decision to make here. Do you want your thread tails to end up on the inside or on the outside? If you have them on the outside, you'll have what's called a hidden binding, basically, because when you glue it down, all your little tails will be glued down with it. I like to have them on the inside because either if we're going to do an envelope, you know, we would have had this here and we would have had a hole going in through the center of this too, and then we would have sewn it in, and I'll show you that when it's done. But always start in the middle. I like the tails on the inside because then you can cut them off, and if you want you can attach charms to them or do lots of stuff with them. I just like having them there. So I'm going to go in through the center. Okay, I'm coming out here. Now I take my book cloth. I'm going to aim it over here. That's the trickier part, is getting it up to this. One of the ways you can do that is just take your needle and poke a hole going that direction, and then you'll see it on the other side. You'll be able to see the other two. Okay, so we have our needle going through this, and wiggle it gently. Don't pull too hard. Leave yourself a nice long tail. Hang on to it. And now we're going to go from the outside in. So we're going to go up through this dot here, and you know, you don't have to like hold this right next to it or whatever. You'll be able to tighten it, so you'll have it. Okay, so we go through this. Now we're going to go through this from the outside, and you can see where you've poked the hole. And as long as you've left it nice and straight, kind of wiggle it gently, it should come right up through. Okay, so we're going to go here, and we're going to, don't pull it tight yet, just pull it tight enough. And now we're going to go down here to this end. Okay, and same thing, if you squeeze your book shut a bit, it's much easier to refine that hole, make sure it's nice and straight. Okay, so there's that one, and again, come up through here, and this one. And you can poke the holes in all these. That's what I usually do, but you know, of course I'm filming stuff, so I'm going to forget half the stuff that I do. So see how I'm already starting to run out of thread a little bit? It's fine. That's why I have a nice long tail here on this side. I'll just pull up a little bit. Okay, now we're going to go back through this hole and then back through the center hole. The key is you do not want to split that thread, so be very careful. Make sure your needle is going to the side of the thread. Hopefully you can see that. And it's very tiny. We're going to come up back through the center. And again, I take it and I kind of fold it to make sure. This is the part where if anything's going to be difficult, it's going to be this one. It's going to fight you. Coming back out where it came. Okay, so see? Let's put this up here. So I've got my needle coming out here. And you make sure you're not splitting this thread. Okay, so this thread I'm going to hold up this way. And this one, I'm going to have, this is coming out on this side. So I'm going to have this one come out on this side. Okay, and pull your needle. You don't need it now. All right, so since this one, pull a little bit here. There we go. All right, so this thread right here is this one. Okay, so the one that's at the top is this one. So we're going to have this down, we're going to have this up, and we're going to pull. Okay, you don't want to pull too tight because you can rip that, but you want to pull tight enough that when you flip it over, it's kind of like banjo strings or something like that. So this one needs to go a little bit tighter. Okay, so that way you know if it's nice and taut here, make sure you don't have any weirdness going on, and it's nice and taut here in the center, then you know it's going to hold your stuff nice and steady. Okay, so we've got this is on either side of the center. We're going to tie one knot, and we're going to tie 2 knots, and there we go. Okay, so now you're sewn in. So now we can take these off. And what I usually do to make life easier for me is I've got a few of these, so I'll have extras. And once I make sure everything's good, I've sewed it to the right side of the fabric. I swear, so many times I've done that and went, oh, son of a... But hey, at least I usually discovered on the first one. So we have this sewn in, and see, here you go. There's your pages. Okay, so to make your life easier, take this one and clip it shut. So that way you're not going to be fighting with it when you do the next one. And the reason I like to do this is that I can then sit this on top of here and do it. So I'm not having to fight with it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on fast forward, and I'm going to sew these other signatures in, and then I will meet you at the end. So this center one that I'm going to do, we're going to do the envelope in. So I'm just going to sit it into the center and sew it in, and I'll show you at the very end of that how we deal with that. Okay. Okay, now we've got all of our signatures sewn in. Now I've left my binder clips on here for now because it's going to make it easier for me to glue it in. So what we have now is called our text block. So this is your signatures, they're sewn in, so you've got a nice amount of space. It's nice and even. We have the same kind of even space on either side. Okay, like so. Let's see if I can, here we go, sort of, with my lighting. I do have new lights coming, so hopefully that'll help. Hopefully they won't be a mess, but the key was to make sure that, you know, these were all facing the right way up. I've done that one too, where I've sewn it upside down. It's not the end of the world. You just cut your thread and you do it again. So now we are going to bring our cover back in. Okay, so we have our cover here. We'll get that nice and centered. Going to get our little bookmarks out of the way. So this piece is going to go in here and it's going to be glued in here. Okay, so now you want to make sure it's centered. So we've got our ribbon here that will help to kind of hold against this and go, okay, so that's pretty much centered there on that side, and just turn it around and look at it, make sure it's centered this way, and everything looks good. And what I usually do is I will take my pencil and I'll kind of mark myself a guideline here on these pieces, just so I know. I don't know if you can see that. You can kind of see where the guideline is, because it's real easy to do these things wrong. Trust me on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue this down with our Fabri-Tac, and then we're going to glue the very center part first. So I'll glue this part here, this part right in the very center first, and then we'll pull up and do each edge. And then as we do each edge, I'm going to get something, I'll have to grab something to kind of hold them up, because once you've glued it in, you want to prop your pages like this with your book flat, and you do not want to move it until that glue is dry, because if you do that, it's tempting to, you know, close it up and make sure it's going to fold and it's going to get in those things. What'll happen is it'll kind of jump the corner here a little bit, and you won't be able to lay your book down as flat as you want. So I just prop it up and leave it until it dries. So we will start that process. And my Fabri-Tac should be playing a lot nicer now since I put, see, it's not bubbling up. There's step number one. Isn't that great? All right, so we are going to put glue all along this area here. We're not going to worry about going out too far to the sides, because we'll get that. We're not going to worry about the little ditch between the pieces. We'll get that. The key is we want to make sure that we're getting this part glued in real good, where you have your strings. You'll go all the way to the edge with that, and then give it a nice generous helping of glue going all the way over those strings, because this is what's going to hold your book together. It's one of the main things. So you don't want to skimp out on the glue on that. You don't have to go crazy with it, but you don't want to, you know, use too little. And again, you've got a second to work with it, so we're going to lay it down. I'm going to put it here where I've got my little lines. That's going to start, and then I'm going to line it up with my center of my ribbon, with my center signature, and I'm also going to make sure the top and the bottom are even. Okay, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to press down between the signatures. Okay, because it's going to want to pull up when you have your signature. See how when your signature is laying down, it's wanting to pull that up. So I'll get in there too with my bone folder, and I'll just kind of hold these apart a little bit. See if I can get it where you can see it. Oops. And I'll kind of press down and just keep pressing down. This stuff grabs really quick. I mean, it doesn't take forever to dry, but I like to make sure it's nice and pressed, especially in that part. You don't want that part coming up. Okay. All right. So now we've got this here. So now we're going to glue down these parts here. Make sure everything still looks fairly level, and it does. All right. So if you pull this up, you can see where we're glued and where we're not glued. So on this, we're going to put the glue on the book, and then we will lay this down. And this is where we're going to start training it to go into that little ditch. So kind of hold this stuff with one hand, take your glue with your other hand, and you can see where this stuff ends. And since I have my helpful little pencil mark, I know where it ends. So I'm going to do a nice generous bead here and on here up to the edge, and then I'm going to kind of try to get some in that ditch as well. Okay, so we have that there. And now we're going to press it down. And this is where your bone folder comes in. Press it down nice and firm with your bone folder. Get nice and squeezed out. And you want to start training it to go in that ditch, but don't worry about it, you know, not completely doing it right away. Because again, once it's dried, then we can get it to go in there. But we just want to kind of give it a, hey, you might want to do this, sort of a nudge, right? On this side. Okay. Now we're going to turn our book around. We're still holding it. And while we do this part, we're going to take some stuff and we're going to kind of prop this up over here. And we're doing the same thing on this side. Make sure your bookmarks are out of the way. Whee! And just knock everything over. That's awesome. Okay, same thing. We're going to go here. And if we, you know, missed a tiny bit of the edge, we can go back and get that. We just want to get the bulk of it on this first run through. So, getting down in here, get some of the little ditch thing there. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, and so we're pressing it down. Again, press it down with your hands and then grab your bone folder and smooth it out. And again, we're going to go to that little ditch and you see, I don't know if you can see, but as I push down in that, this is starting to lift up a little bit, which it's going to do. So that's why we will worry about that at the very end. Okay, so we've got that in there nice. And we're going to grab some other stuff. What else do I have that I can put there? Not a heck of a lot. Let's see. Put my fish. All right, I got my fish. And then these are kind of short. So let's see. Have anything tall? I don't have anything tall around here. Oh, I'll use my glue. All right, so there we are. And all we're doing is we want to prop this up in a position where your pages are straight up and down. And you can still take your bone folder and kind of go in between those. Don't, you know, like with this, don't flatten it like this because this is wider than your stuff and you could tear something. And that's the last thing you want to do right now, right? Because you just spent all this time sewing those in. Okay, rub that down. And I go along with my finger because to me the most important part is the very top and the very bottom. And making sure that that's stuck down real good. Okay, so we are going to leave this here to dry and I will be back with you as soon as it's dry and we will figure out the end papers and I'll show you, you know, how the pages look and all that stuff. We'll figure out the end papers, okay? All right, so it's been about 15-20 minutes or so. Because it's Fabri-Tac, Fabri-Fix, it's going to set it fairly quickly. So if you use, say, a PVA style glue or something else, then you may want to leave it even overnight just to make sure it's nice and dry. So I will move these now. Get my little fishy out of the way there. I love that thing. Get my glue out of the way. All right, and as you can see now, I can put these over and it's not pulling up. And it's not pulling up in the centers. Okay, so let's get this turned around the right way. I had a heart attack moment there for a second because I'm like, I did put it the right way, didn't I? Because I've done that. That's a lot more problematic to remove this and get it switched around the right way. So we are going to take the bone folder and we are going to find our crease because it's going to be super stiff now. And then just like you do with any other kinds of books, you're going to find that crease and you're going to kind of train it. Same with this one here. And you're going to push it down in there and then you're going to shut your book. Okay, while making sure that goes down in there nice and straight. And once you do that, then you can check to see, make sure it's not too wrinkly over here. And voila, we have our book. Okay, so now we can take these off because they're not going to be too much of a pain. I'm going to do the front and the back papers in the next one just because this is going to be pushing like an hour as it is. But here we are. So we essentially have our book. Our text block is in there. We have all of our pages in here. So this one here you'll see is it's held in the center with this. So when we go to the decorating part of things, we'll pull this in here. We're going to trim those off and then we're going to glue this shut and it's going to trap those in there and it's going to keep this nice and steady because it'll be held in by that center. Okay, so there we go. We have our pages in there. So as soon as we get our front and back things on, we'll have a real book and then it's just about decorating. And that's what we'll mess with our ribbons. So we'll put that one in that side, and we will, it's the only problem once the envelope, before you glue it together, it's just, it gets everywhere. We'll pull that there, and we will shut that, and there we go. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to glue these down this way too, just so they don't do this, because that would be massively annoying. But we will do that on the next episode of our start to finish journal. We'll do the front and the back, and I think that's when we'll do the tassel as well. So that way we can have our nifty tassel along with it. And I will see you guys then. Hej med er, have a great day, and see you guys later. Bye!